Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Apolla's Odyssey. I'm your host, Apolla Asteria, and today is actually a pre-recorded show that now when you're watching it when it's airing, I would have recorded it yesterday because right now, tomorrow, I'll be on a plane on my way to Illinois to see my family, and then I am off to Serpent Mound. I'll be driving over to Serpent Mound in Ohio to be a part of that event, and I'm really excited for that. And basically, I guess to kind of pregame for that event, I'm bringing on Michael Lee Hill, who will also be there. And I've had him on my show several times before. I always love doing interviews with him because he just, has had such a very, very interesting life. And, I'll let him get into, he basically makes these really incredible energy devices like myself. His are really incredible, and I'll let him get into his backstory. But before we get started here, let me share with you all. Oops. Second. So please check out my shaman spears, which are over at shamanspears.com if you would like to help fund my show and keep me going here. Because basically it's like donating to my show, but it also is helping me get around to these conferences and continue doing what I do. So all orders I do next day shipping on. So those are all over here at shamanspears.com. Make sure you check it out. All right, so let's go ahead and bring Michael on here. Michael, how's it going? You're looking like a rock star over there with your sunglasses. I know you just got a surgery, right?
Yeah, doctor's orders. Mike, you got to look like a rock star. Sorry. But yeah, I had retina attachment surgery, and my eyes are dilated to the maximum that they can be dilated, and it's going to be for the next year. And so I had to get some really good sunglasses that are, UV protection and polarized. And I pretty much have to wear them 24/7 if I want to see at all. Otherwise, just everything is way too blown out. And so it's weird. And it's like, I wear my sunglasses at night kind of deal. It's not what I ever wanted, but hey, I'm gonna roll through it like a rock star.
Hey, you're already a rock star anyway, so it just adds to it. So I guess before we get started here, maybe if you'd like to share a little bit of your background. I know you have some like alien blood. You were tested for the History Channel, and I don't know if you want to maybe share that story briefly before we get started here, in case anyone watching hasn't heard it yet.
Anything you want to know, you just ask. I'm an open book. And yeah, that was as weird to me as it is to anyone else. I was on the History Channel, their UFO hunters show, and it was episode called Alien Contact, and it's in season 1. Interestingly, it's become the most popular UFO hunters episode, and it was the episode that actually got it renewed for a second season. And it was because of my Lake Erie UFO footage. But what I didn't know is they had filmed another contactee. His name was Terrell Copeland. And that was in Washington, and he was a Marine. And they're going to ship him off to another country, and they did a really in-depth medical workup, and they found he had a blood anomaly. Well, what was weird to the History Channel is he had filmed the exact same orbs of light that I have, and had the same story of contact and the same spiritual message given to him that the law of attraction, beliefs create reality, kind of bit of info. But he's the one at first, the medical doctors found this weird blood anomaly, and they thought, wouldn't it be weird if these two guys that don't know each other but have such similar footage and stories of contact and actually information given to them, if they both ended up with the same blood anomaly? So let me back up here, I'm getting tongue tied. Without telling me, which they were smart because I am a baby and I don't like needles, they thought, let's have both these guys. I don't like it at all. Matter of fact, I had to give blood today, and I was like, wah, don't like
Yeah.
it. But
When someone
so
comes
they
at me with a needle, I feel like I just want to take them down. I'm like, do not come near me with that.
right on. I'm the same way. And I even told her, I'm like, is it better if I look or don't look? She goes, well, if you're gonna pass out, don't look. So I didn't look. But when I got to Boston, because they said, would you be willing to do a follow-up, to your story? And I thought, well, sure, why not? I didn't know they're flying me there and the other guy, Terrell Copeland, to have our blood work done by a Harvard professor. His name was David Systrom. And this is all in the episode. People are like, that can't be true. That'd be all over the news. I'm like, man, watch the episode. You know what I mean? I couldn't make this stuff up if I tried. But sure enough, they found this non-human blood anomaly in both of our blood, and it's an increase in an enzyme called creatine kinase, or CK for short. And the normal amounts of creatine kinase in a bloodstream is about 25 parts per liter of blood. But if you rip the muscle or had a heart attack, it can jump up to about 300 tops. And that is because creatine kinase brings in extra chi or prana or life force into your body to facilitate healing. That if you rip the muscle, because what happens is the creatine kinase brings extra oxygen into the bloodstream. Extra oxygen equals how much electricity or chi or prana that you're holding at a cellular level. So the more CK, the more chi or prana you are holding at a cellular level. Like I said, normal amounts are 25 parts per liter of blood. Mine was at 2,100. So you can imagine my blood is very oxygenated. But the weird part was they could find no medical reason for it. And the Harvard professor, he said, if I had to venture a guess, I would think that there's some type of virus that is unknown. And that's what is tricking your brain into releasing these massive amounts of creatine kinase. Now, we can get into this, but I was taken into what's called the ACIO, which is a secret reverse engineering division of the NSA. And I learned a lot more about this bloodline, but even more so than that, in the summer of 2008, I went to a festival called Sirius Rising. And at that point, I didn't know what the Anunnaki even was. And I was met there in the flesh by beings who said, we were once known in your past as the Anunnaki, and we want to talk to you about the blood issue, the blood anomaly that was revealed on the History Channel, because it's an indicator that you are of our hybrid bloodline on this planet known as the Nephilim. And that's all true, by the way. We can get into all that because the Nephilim later on became known as the mound builders, which I know you know what this is all about. That's the bloodline that intertwined into the Native American First Nation elders. And now the end result is Star Knowledge, the Star Knowledge movement. We can get into all that. But that's in a nutshell what it is. And we can also get into, at this point, it's weird, man. I've been told, people are like, you shouldn't say you're Inky, I'm like, I'm not saying I was. I know I am, by the way. But if I'm going to tell my story, they said we were once known in the past as the Anunnaki, and you were once known as Inky, the water bearer. And none of that made any sense to me. If you don't know who the Anunnaki are, I can guarantee you don't know who Ea or Inky or the water bearer is. And the Anunnaki have taken years to drill me with extra detail of what those words mean and why, you know, we can get into this, but the discs that you're talking about, my 432 hertz crystal energy discs ended up getting looked into by NASA, and got new news on that, by the way, and it's pretty incredible. But what was discovered already is they revitalize and resurrect dead municipal tap water back into
Wow.
living holy water energetics. So, and I got all the
Let
proof from
me
NASA.
pull those up right here on your site. I actually have one like right over here. I can get up and get it, but maybe I should just
You're
pull it
one of
up
the
on
first.
here. I
You're one
love
of the first that I ever even got one, and I got one of your
I love them
shaman
so much.
sprays. Well,
You
wait till you
got one
find
of the
out.
most important one because the
Mm,
end of it is actually from the Pyramid of Giza.
Egypt.
So yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I love it. It's a treasured artifact of mine. But that's the deal with the blood anomaly. I am of the Nephilim bloodline, and we can get into this. It ties into what Chief Golden Light Eagle started here. And near the end of his life, me and him brought the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull to East Lake to an unknown earthwork here. It takes over a mile to walk around it. It's massive. But it was filmed for a new upcoming TV series, which more likely will be out on Gaia. It's called Quest of the Crystal Skull. And during the filming of this show, he told the film crew and everyone that was around the table in the backyard, I'm going to be leaving the planet soon. I am going to be dropping
Wow.
my robe. And everyone was like, oh, no, Chief, don't say that. You got a long time left here. And he said, no, you're not listening to me. I will be leaving soon, and I've left Michael as my successor. And the family has chosen Michael to be the official appointed messenger to bring star knowledge to the planet. And so that's why I'm very excited about what's happening at Serpent Mound. We can get into the work that he and I, right before he passed away, has went live in Canada now, and unbelievable things happening. But
What work happened in Canada with him?
well, in 2019 was the last Star Knowledge Conference that he actually overseen. And I was there as the official mound builder representative. And so afterwards, this production company came up to me and they said, we're here filming and we really liked your presentation. Would you like to be part of our TV show we're here filming? So I said, sure, had no clue what it was. Here for real, it was the Canadian Public Corporation, which is bigger than the PBS here in the States. It has more of a reach. And they were filming, excuse me, they were filming a show called Star Beings, all about Native American First Nation contact with star beings and what they've learned. And the show that me and Chief Golden Light Eagle and Douglas Holtzman, Merlin, he's known as, we were all part of this show, and it aired last August. But he called me. I became friends with the producer of this from Canada. And he said, Michael, I really don't think you understand how big what you're a part of is. He said at the University of Ottawa, which is Canada's capital city, that we're going to be bringing indigenous elders to teach every equinox and every solstice at the University of Ottawa. And he said, what do you think we should name this movement? I said, well, you met us at a Star Knowledge conference. So, for real, they named it the Star Knowledge Symposia.
Oh
And
wow.
so how this gets even bigger is, are you aware that the Pope just went to Canada to apologize for their crimes against humanity towards the Native
No, I'm not
American?
aware of that.
This is
That
huge. They've
that just happened
right
like
now,
last week.
no, last year, I believe. So what happened was, under these boarding schools in Canada that were ran by the Catholic Church, they found over 12,000 bodies of children that were tortured to death. and it's made
Wow.
massive news over there. Canada is going right now and using ground penetrating radar to unearth all the bodies they can find, and the remains are being returned to the families. But what's happening in Canada is the news of this is getting into the mass media, and people are revolting, and they're going and burning down the churches. They're like just
Wow.
sickened by what they're finding out that the church did to to the children. So I
I
was just
saw this in documentaries about how that happened on the reservations here in America with
well, that's what we can get
like them
into.
cutting off their hair and like forcing them to convert to
It's way
Christianity
worse.
and
It's even worse than that, because what people need to know is these Canadian boarding schools were based on American boarding schools, like you said, in the
Mhm.
Nakota areas specifically, but all over the place. And the numbers of over 12,000 bodies that's been found in Canada right now is not even, hate to say that it's not a competition, but it's going to be way worse in America, because some people have the level of genocide that happened here up to 100 million. So it wouldn't surprise me, because this hasn't broken America yet. And this needs to happen, because America can't go into the future as the civil rights champion and shit with this kind of stuff in the closet. And it needs to be
Yeah,
revealed. And,
definitely.
people have no idea this country was formed on slavery and genocide, and from the church. It's all Catholic Church doing. The Vatican is the seat of all evil that's been on this planet. I know a lot of people are going to have a problem with this, but hey, it is what it is. But
Mhm.
so what had happened was the head of the Canadian Public Corporation, and the show that aired last August. By the way, he's working on getting me a copy of that show that I can show at Serpent Mound this coming
Oh,
weekend.
awesome. I'm excited to
And
see it.
yeah, me too. But I don't have it yet. So if not, Spirit's telling me you got some things to discuss. Um, and actually, we're, like you said, this is a pregame for it. But here's the deal: is in Canada there's a huge movement now, because people are finding out about these children's bodies, and they're wanting to learn everything about Native American First Nation culture, and why did this happen. So all of a sudden the Star Knowledge Symposia, uh, because every solstice and every equinox you can go to the University of Ottawa and learn from indigenous elders, and the attendance and interest has went through the roof. And
Wow.
now he said that there's just thousands of people going to these events in Canada. And he said, who did Chief Golden Light Eagle leave in charge of the American Star Knowledge movement? I said, well, actually, it's me. Like I said, I'm proud of it, but it's also on film. It's not my opinion, and I've stayed out of it. That there's some controversy happening within the Star Knowledge movement. And to me, I don't need anyone's permission. I am a Star Knowledge ambassador. And Chief has said on film that he left me as his successor and the Bloodline's official messenger. So, with that being said, that's what's happening in Canada. It hasn't yet spread to the United States, but it will. And there's a huge reckoning coming. Or, they
It
say,
needs to. And it makes me so sad that the culture, like it was like they fought so hard to wipe the culture, the indigenous culture out. And I think, like all those prophecies that about like the Rainbow Warrior prophecy, like and all those prophecies that kind of come together around that. I feel like that's really going to happen. It's really coming to a point where people are
well,
like, the general population, like in America, is like, wait, we need to like hear what they have to say, because we're destroying the land
Apolla,
now. And
are you aware of what my actual Native American First Nation spiritual name is given to me
the
by Chief Golden what? Rainbow
it was a
Warrior
Rainbow
Eagle.
Warrior. I love that.
Yeah.
It's so great.
So, and actually, we can get into that as well. Well, while we're here, I
Yeah,
might as
what
well
what
tell
brought
you.
you into star knowledge? Oh yeah, sorry, I don't know.
Well, What brought me into star knowledge is because of the History Channel revealing that I didn't have normal human blood. They found out I was adopted and said, can you anyhow get a hold of your biological parents to see if this is something hereditary, you know? So for the first time, I reached out and I met my biological mother and my two sisters. And that's when I found out I had almost pureblood Seneca of the Iroquois, a bloodline. And that's when I also found out that Eric Clapton is my biological father. That sounded as crazy to me as all of this. People are like, what? I'm like, I think that the Anunnaki do this on purpose. So if you try to talk about it, it makes you sound insane. But sure enough, Eric Clapton is my biological father. But so when I found out about my Indian heritage, I started to look into the subject a little bit. And it seemed like they had a lot of information that people in the Western culture don't know. And I remember thinking, man, it would be so cool to be able to meet the chiefs of all the different tribes and the grandmothers and the elders. My next thought was like, how the hell is that ever going to happen? I'm like an instant Indian, you know what I mean? Like, how am I going to meet these chiefs and everything? Well, I was speaking about the Lake Erie UFOs at a conference called Angels and Aliens in Columbus, Ohio. And Chief Golden Light Eagle had been brought in as the keynote speaker. So he and I met each other for the first time, kind of just walking through a hallway, and there he was. And he points at me and he said, I need the Nephilim ambassadors at the Star Knowledge conferences. I need your energy. Will you come and speak at my conferences? And I'm looking around going, is this dude talking to me? You know, like what's going on? And sure enough, he goes, so you're one of those Indians from the Great Lakes area. And I said, yep. He said, you're one of those Atlanteans, heavy duty. And he walked away. I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? Atlanteans. Sure enough, I found out the mound builders are the remnants of the Atlanteans. Funny enough, Edgar Cayce knew this. You know, a lot of people know Edgar Cayce did a lot of prophecy on the Hall of Records under the Sphinx and, you know, who the Atlanteans were. But people don't know that he said exactly what happened to the Atlanteans, that they intertwined, they came to North America and they intertwined into the Native American Indian tribes. Mainly the highest numbers are within the Iroquois, but the Sioux, which is Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota, have kept their star knowledge more so than anyone. But this will get into an interesting subject, because what I would like to talk about, well, what is star knowledge? I think it's important to get a definition, you know, but that's how I was brought into the fold is, you know, so the next thing I knew, there I was at Star Knowledge conferences with the chiefs and the grandmothers and the elders of all of the tribes. I got to share a funny story though, because Chief would always invite me to go to a sweat lodge with all the elders. And the grandmother's like, Michael, we know you smoke marijuana, and don't do your first sweat lodge high. You know, some of them told me, we smoke it too, but don't do your first sweat lodge high. Well, I was always high, so I never did it. I was like scared. They're like, do not do it high. So finally I had to sit Chief down and say, Chief, I want you to know I really appreciate and honor you asking me to join the elders with you. But, you know, the grandmothers told me not to do it high. He's like, don't listen to them, Michael. Pleiadians brought marijuana to this planet. It's their medicine. And I'm like, really? Well, okay, cool. If I got your permission. So the next one, yeah, you know, I did it pretty darn high and I loved it. So I've done many, many sweat lodges with Chief now. And man, we can reveal some stuff on this planet. I mean, stuff that's unknown regarding Chief Golden Light Eagle and the Star Knowledge family being Anunnaki hybrids. And they know this. The grandmothers know who they are. Chief Golden Light Eagle, definitely. I asked them, man to man, eyeball to eyeball. I said, you know, this is going to be odd, but spirits led me to understand you are Enlil, Yahweh, my brother. And he said, yes, I've done some pretty messed up things. And he said, but I said, well, haven't we all? You know, I didn't really know what to say, but he said, and no, this isn't the first time that we've met, Michael. We met in your last incarnation, and it wasn't pleasant. But he said, I realize now you were only showing me my own darkness. And so I guess in many, many different incarnations, he and I have butted heads, and he is my brother from another mother of the Anunnaki. He was known as Enlil, and I'm known as Inky. Well, was known as Inky, but more and more people are calling me Inky, man. That's a weird subject too, and I'd love to get into it. That I'm
I
cool with Mike.
recognized it right when I saw you too.
Yeah, that was weird. You're one of the first. I think you're
There's-
one of the only people that had the intuition, or not, or even the balls to come up to me and going, "Hey, are you Inky?" I'm like, "Well, yep, you know." But so thank you for the way, because it's nice to be recognized. But the truth of the matter is, all of us have lived many, many, many lifetimes, and all of us have had many, many, many names. And I know many names I was known as besides Ea, Enki, Ptah, Maitreya in Tibet. The Native American Indian culture knew me as the peacemaker, or chief corn planter. Biblically, I've been known as Michael and Lucifer, which is interesting. A lot of New Age people are like, "Oh, there's the dark cabal; they're Luciferian." I'm like, "No, they're not. They have nothing to do with me. You're just
yeah.
believing what you're told to believe." And but the Native American Indians believe that Michael and Lucifer is, whether you've taken a dark seat or a light seat in many incarnations. It got so dark that a lot of us, we chose a dark path because we're being tortured, you know, and yeah, man, if you want to get to my bad side, torture me and my family and you'll get the horns. But anyhow, I don't go around saying these things much because I know the label of what, the baggage that comes with that title, Lucifer. But it is true. And do I think Michael and Lucifer are one and the same? I can tell you the Native American First Nation culture, because people are like, what does the Native Americans have anything to say about Christianity? Well, the fact of the matter is, this is the lost tribe of Israel. The Nephilim came from the hill of Galilee. This is proven with DNA scientific proof in the form of haplogroup X2A. Just Google it. Haplogroup X2A right now is they know of at least 3% of Native American First Nation populations. Some of us, like Iroquois, are up to 50%, but the numbers might be a lot higher in some tribes, but not a lot of Indians have had their uh, blood work done, right? But the deal is, go backwards in time, and where you'll find haplogroup X2A is in the tall, giant statured skeletal remains that have been removed out of these mound sites, mainly around the Great Lakes.
Do
But
you
if you
think
keep going,
Serpent Mound has those skeletons in it or nearby?
absolutely, it's proven. Oh, I can send you a picture. I have a photograph of a skeleton that was removed out of it wasn't, there's burial mounds that are right around the serpent. And the skeleton that was removed out of one of those burial mounds was 9 feet tall, but it had been, the shin and the foot right under the knee had been removed, and it was still 9 feet. So you can imagine, if it had its shin and foot, it was probably a 13-foot individual.
And
Uh,
those are the red-haired giants everyone always talks about,
yes,
like
some of
the
them say that they're red hair and double rows of teeth. And a lot of us, because I am haplogroup X2A. Well, what's interesting, this is an interesting talking point, is obviously we're not of giant stature anymore, because there's no doubt about it that a few generations ago, haplogroup X2A had giant stature. But now, uh, it's funny, I'm not being derogatory, but I kind of have the body of a giant midget. I got these little tiny legs, but I got the top part of a giant. But I like to say they shrunk me and I just got wider. But uh, so
you know, I was
haplogroup. Go ahead.
I was curious what the relation with the Cherokee is, because my great grandma was Cherokee. Like, she was on the reservation and everything. Like, she grew up there. She went
Cherokee.
back and like for some reason it doesn't show up in my blood test, so I don't understand when I tried to do it.
Well,
So I don't
here's the
understand.
deal, Apollo. It makes perfect sense to me. First of all, if you were of the Mound Builder Atlantean bloodline that intertwined into the Native American Indian tribes, some of the tribes kept that bloodline really tight, meaning they wouldn't mix blood with other bloodlines. And if you had this bloodline, actually comes from the hills of Galilee. It's actually ancient Hebrew. It's not Native American Indian, even though later on in life it intertwined. So if you're of a, and these individuals were the culture bringers, like Coatzacoalcos, who, brought the knowledge of astrology and astronomy and calendar building and pyramid building to the Mexican Mayan culture. And then what happened was when blood sacrifice ceremonies set into the Aztec and the Mayan cultures, they fled there and out of the Yucatan, they went to Crystal River, Florida. I'm telling you things that are unknown to the world right now. So thank you for giving me. But this is what star knowledge is all about too. This is the apocalypse. The apocalypse means the revealing of what was once hidden. It's nothing scary. It's not doom or gloom. But the bloodline entered Crystal River, Florida. And interestingly enough, they just found the first American Mayan step pyramid is in Florida. And it's really big, actually, but it's more like a ziggurat. The pyramids like in Chichen Itza, where they're
Right.
flat on the top. And it's about 76 feet long, and it's actually
Oh
in
wow.
really good shape. And it's right there in Florida. They have ground penetrating radar footage of it. And
Are they going to
there's a whole,
dig it up, uncover it?
you know what? That's a very good question. But, that's very close to where I was living. So actually, I did a lot of ceremony there. And there's the Mayan Step Pyramid is on the other side of Crystal River, and it's owned by Florida, and it's state-owned land, and it's no trespassing. And plus, Florida, you don't really want to go traipsing around where you're not supposed to go because there is stuff that can kill you. You know what I mean? It's not like where I'm at right now where nothing can kill you. It's like I moved there, and it's like, no, everything can kill you. Keep your eyes open, But some of those mound sites had artifacts that have been dug up that have, for instance, ancient Mayan symbols on the pottery and whatnot. And it's all right there in Crystal River, Florida. But let me tell you, one of the grandmothers asked me if I'd go for a ride with her. And actually, this is going to be cool because, saying that you're Ia Inky is rubbing people wrong. Some people, they're like, well, don't say that because it's going to make people not believe anything you have to say. And to me, I'm like, I can't even tell my story. That's one of the first things when I met the Anunnaki, they told me. And then I asked, well, if you are who you say you are, and I am who you say I am, put the name Ia Inky into a crop circle. And I will take notice. I'm a student of the subject, and that'll be my confirmation that you are who you say you are, and I am who you say I am. And sure enough, in 2011, well, mind you, I asked of them that in 2009. In 2011, the crop circle did show up for real in the real world, and they encoded the name Ia Inky into a crop circle that is at the end of a 7-pointed star. And every end of the star had a row, what turns out to be ASCII binary code. And when you decode it, it says Ia space Inky. Well, the 7-pointed star is directly related to the 432 subject because when you put a 27 hertz pulse through a cymatic device, which is new scientific technology that makes frequency visible for the first time, it creates a perfect 7-pointed star. And interestingly enough for you, Apolla, is the 7-pointed star is the Cherokee symbol for their tribe. And
Really?
yes. And go backwards in time, the map that sits in a museum, the World Map of Babylon, is a 7-pointed star. And
Wow.
so it's all
I know what you're
related.
talking about. I've seen that.
Yeah, and the Cherokee and the Iroquois, Seneca specifically is what I am. It's the exact same blood. Because here's getting back to the grandmother. She said, Michael, will you go for a ride with me in my minivan? And I said, sure. And this is actually at the Sundance, by the way, that we were at. And she said, I want to talk to you. She said, you are the rainbow we've been waiting for. I thought, that's interesting. This is how I got the name, by the way. She said, to those of us that have the gift of sight, you've become the whirling rainbow. And she said, to us, rainbow doesn't mean what it means to the rest of the world. She said, it's your human chakra system. And every chakra, she said, has a double tetrahedron, a Merkaba, a Star of David shaped energy field within that chakra. And only when they're clear and balanced and spinning freely do they emit light. And it's red in the root, through purple in the crown, and the other colors of the rainbow through the other 7 chakras. So when you heal and balance all 7 chakras, to them that have the gift of sight, you become the whirling rainbow or become rainbow. Tibetan monks have this exact same understanding. They call it obtaining the rainbow body. In the Norse,
and it's like the Merkabas kind of spin in the different
yeah.
directions to form it.
But they said only when it's spinning freely and unencumbered does it emit light. So what they told me was that's why I was gifted my spiritual name of Rainbow Warrior by the Eagle Nation. This is interesting too because, well, the Eagle Nation is Enlil's nation on this planet, or Yahweh's nation. And man, this is all weird for me because I know I sound biblical and I'm not. It's just is what it is. And I definitely don't want to sound like an evangelist. And I'm not. I'm more like Joe Walsh. You know what I mean? But anyhow.
I love Joe Walsh.
I love him too.
Life's
You know,
Been
one of
Good
my
was like
buddies,
my favorite song.
isn't
like
it awesome?
My first favorite song. Yeah.
I got to send you a video. One of my best friends growing up right here in East Lake, Ohio, his name was Tom Bukovic. And we grew up playing guitar together. And matter of fact, I've been to his house in Nashville. Well, he just ended up on the last tour getting the gig to play for Joe Walsh.
Dang.
So there's a video out there saying about how, you know, he was our idol, and me and him joking. I mean, he's played with everyone. You know, Tom has. I'm like, can you imagine growing up saying, yeah, I'm going to be playing for Joe Walsh? But he's got some unbelievably cool stories, and just how cool Joe Walsh truly is, you know. But getting back to the mound builders and the Cherokee and the 7-pointed star being related to the 432 subject, but the biblical part of it is, are you aware that the first 10 commandments ever on this planet was found in artifact removed out of the Newark earthworks in Ohio, not Egypt?
No. Wow.
Yeah, many of the artifacts, over 30,000 tablets have been removed out of these mound builder mounds all around the Great Lakes. They become known as the Michigan artifacts. And by the way,
was
they're
that like a Smithsonian Gate thing? Like, did they take it and
no,
not say
no,
anything?
no.
I haven't heard.
I know, because me and Chief Golden Light Eagle are the ones that is revealing all this to the planet. And what was really weird was the reason I found out about them is I was gifted Zachariah Sitchin's flash drive of what he was looking into about, at the time of his death. I still have that flash drive, by the way. And I have all the photos that were on it and all the video, some really interesting video of artifacts that he was interested in. And what he was doing was tracking down the Anunnaki human hybrid bloodline into the Native American First Nation culture. So in this flash drive, I've seen one of these Michigan artifacts that have all this writing in ancient Hebrew, ancient Egypt, and ancient Sumerian on these tablets, over 30,000 tablets. So when I walked out of being filmed for the Canadian Public Corporation, he was doing his presentation in the main conference hall. And I walked in and he had one of the Michigan artifacts up on the screen behind him. I was like, what the heck? How is that even possible? Because the only way I knew of it was Zachariah Sitchin's own personal flash drive. So I walked in, I said, Chief, I was gifted a flash drive of Sitchin's, and that was on it. How are you showing it? He said, "Yes, Michael, that stuff you talk about." That's my chief impersonation, by the way. Yes, Michael. I got to share something funny. He would always talk about hair being your antenna into the sixth sense. And
Yeah.
I guess this has been proven through the Navajo code breakers, for the military or whatnot. But he'd be saying this, and all of a sudden he would stop his presentation and he would look at me and go, "Michael, is that a wig?" But anyhow, I
Wow.
digress. Um, he was one of the funniest individuals ever on this planet. And, 2016, near the end of 2016 is when I was led to understand he was Enlil, my brother. And, asked him man to man, eyeball to eyeball. And he said, yes. He said, no one knows who Enlil or Yahweh is anymore, anyhow. So I just go by Chief. But from that point forward, he and I had a brotherly relationship, knowing who each other were and working together for humanity. That's not happened in probably any other incarnation. It's like this is the time that we came together and there was much brotherly love flowing. But people were like, how are you? Because by the way, when they recognized me as uh, gave me the name Rainbow Warrior Eagle, and interested, I got to get back to this because the sorry if I'm jumping around, but I don't want to lose fact of something I started, and that is when Grandmother Morningstar at Sundance said, "I'd like to talk to you about the dialect of our bloodline, and mainly the Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota." She said, "But I want to talk to you about the migration of our people into North America." She said, "Wouldn't it be nice though if I had a map of the United States to show you on?" And she went like this over her minivan window, and a map of the United States appeared out of nowhere. It looked like a holodeck map of the United States. It was all red, and it looked like it was made from a computer, like 3D. And it was, it was floating between her and her minivan window. And she looks at me and she's like, "Michael, I know you can see it." I'm like, "Yep, it's right there. There's no not seeing it." And she proceeded to use that map for about the next 15 minutes to show me the migration route of our people into North America, intertwining into the Native American Indian tribes. And she said, "I want to talk to you about the dialect of the Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota, because the same word uh, can is the same word in Lakota will end in LA. The same word in Dakota will end in DA. And the same word in Nakota will end in NA." He said, "Let's use the word grandfather, for example." But I got to tell you why grandfather is so important, because as I told you, when I first met the Anunnaki, they said you were once known as Ea, Inky, the water bear. Didn't know what those words meant. So now let's fast forward to 2016 when I'm with the grandmother. And she said, "I want to talk to you about the dialect. Let's use the word grandfather." Earlier, uh, during a Sundance ceremony, they cut down a tree that's used as part of the ceremony. And when they had done that, we were walking back to our vehicles to go back to the Sundance grounds. And some gentleman ran up and grabbed me by the shoulder and pointed into the woods and said, "They're having a grandfather meeting and your presence is requested." And I thought, okay, I don't even have children. I don't know what the hell that's about. So I walked over there, and here, the stump of the tree that had been cut down for the ceremony, there was a young girl sitting on it, and she pointed into the woods, and she said, "They're right in there. You can't miss them." So I thought, oh, well, okay, I guess. So I walked in there. It wasn't easy getting into where they pointed, by the way. There's lots of thorns and thicket, and I ended up I was bleeding. I had shorts on. I got in there. There was no grandfathers. There was no nothing. I thought, am I being Indian punked? Is this some kind of practical joke, So I got my way out of there again and got back to the Sundance grounds. And this little girl came hopping up to me and she goes, Spirit told me to tell you that you didn't see the grandfathers because they were in spirit form. I went, what? I said, how do you know? She said, Spirit told me. And she turned around and skipped off. So I'm like, what the
Wow.
heck is even going on? So later on, one of the grandmothers pulled me aside and she told me that she was from the 13th dimension and here to oversee what was going on there. And someone at this point walked up and said, uh, talked to her for about 5 minutes. And at the end of that, said, well, thank you, grandmother, for your time. By the way, is this your grandson? She said, no, this is the grandfather talking to me. I'm like, what the hell is going on with this grandfather thing? Well, now fast forward to when grandmother Morningstar brought me, and into the car and made a map appear out of nowhere. And she's going to tell me about the dialect of the Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota. She said, let's use the word grandfather. For example, the most ancient word in their language for grandfather is Ia. Isn't that interesting? So in
Wow.
Dakota, it's Ia Da, because it's Dakota. In Lakota, it would be Iala, and then Iana. And so, to me, it would almost be blasphemous if spirit has went to this degree hyperdimensionally to fill in the detail of these previous names. And there's no hierarchy. A matter of fact, the Anunnaki told me over and over again, don't get cocky when you find out some of the past incarnations and who you were, because the acorn is no less significant than the giant oak it will one day become in creator's eyes, that we all go through. We're all young souls and then we all grow into old souls. And they said we've all had many names, so many names that names become useless. What you truly are, Michael, is nameless but not voiceless. I love that. I think we're all, and I tell people, how many Mary Magdalenes and Thoths and that I've met, and some of it just seems like a distraction. That what I've learned is the only thing that is real is the moment point. It's right now. It's the only time that you can enact change. It's your time of power. The only time that you can make a decision and change your life for the better is right now. And if you're thinking about what you did last week, or that this moment isn't what you thought it would be, you've lost your moment of power. If you're thinking about what you should do, what you're going to be doing next week, even, you've lost your moment of power. If you're lost in your cell phone, you've lost your moment of power. If you're lost in what you did a month ago, you've lost your moment of power. If you've lost yourself in what you did a year ago or years ago or lifetimes ago, you're not paying attention then. If your mind is there and not in this present moment and what's right in front of you right now, you've lost your only moment of power. So I'm a firm believer that, yeah, don't get cocky when you find out, because probably, when you start to have past life recall, which we all will, because that's one thing that they're telling me, the Western culture has to wake up to the fact that reincarnation is real. And
Mm.
and lead the way. Don't be ashamed of because Apollo, I got to tell you, when I met the Anunnaki, they said, now that we know that you're one of us, we're going to remove your memory blocks. I was thinking,
Wow.
first of all, well, I didn't know I had memory blocks. The hell's that about, right? But other than that, I thought, well, how the hell would suppressed blocked memories surface into my mind without me going insane? How would that happen with, because I consider myself to be an intelligent person, and it would have to fit into my worldview and my belief system as it stands right now. And, at that time, I didn't know I was Native American Indian. All that happened after they removed my memory blocks. So I think that's kind of how it works. It said, we all have cellular memory that comes in through past lifetimes, and my blood is speaking to me and my past life incarnations. But I guess my point was, you know, I'm sure I've been a lot of incarnations where I went dark side and I let this nightmare of an existence that we've made this into in some places on this planet take me down, you know? And probably when I guess I'm saying, I think even when you start to have past life recall, the good stuff's going to surface first. It's just how we are. Remember the good things. But so I just wanted to share that and a little bit of how I know I am the grandfather. Inky, which means N means Lord or ambassador, and Kai is Earth. So Enkai means Earth ambassador in today's Western culture, which is really interesting because Nikolai Tesla is taking my 432 work. The disc you have, that image is going to the moon. Isn't that unbelievable? And
It's
it'll be
going
there
through
for
the moon?
going to the moon
Oh,
this month. Yeah, in a crystal time capsule that SpaceX,
wow.
Elon Musk is taking it there. And
Wow.
my image has been accepted into humanity's Hall of Fame, uh, part of that crystal archive time capsule that is going. And so I have the
So
plaque.
incredible.
Yeah, I got the plaque from SpaceX with the certificate of participation, a separate plaque. But guess what? Elon Musk gave me the official title as
What?
official Earth ambassador.
No way. Wow.
Yeah,
That's
I didn't.
amazing.
He doesn't know the story or anything. You know what I mean? I think the Anunnaki are pretty. They have fun with this. Like, I could say Elon Musk says I'm inky, so back off. But
That's, that's
so,
incredible.
but while we're talking about it, it was Richard Hoagland who aligned NASA to look into my 432 work and found that it does revitalize dead municipal tap water. And I have all the photography and scientific data from them. But I asked, she's a world-renowned biophysicist. Her name is Beverly Rubik, and she does consulting for NASA when they need to know anything to do with the aura field, or it's called the Meissner field, or the subtle energy field around the human body, or any. That's why they have her test water, because they can test the energetic level of water. And obviously, for you want the most energetic water, right, for astronauts. So she's who they go to look into energetic states of water on the planet. So she did 3 studies, one with California municipal tap water, which is almost dead, by the way. Municipal
That's
tap
really
water
bad.
is don't drink it. It's that simple. We've killed it by putting chlorine and fluoride and making it go down hundreds of feet. But that same water you could put on one of my discs, and in 15 minutes it looks like a supernova has went off inside that water droplet of energy. And I said, well, wait a minute. Isn't that some form of unlimited free energy? There's no energy, but now there's a ton of energy. Where's that extra energy coming from? I asked her. I said, is it our sun? Is it our planets? Is it our planet's electromagnetic fields? And she said, no, it's coming from another dimension. She said, whatever you've done is opening a portal through the fabric of our space time, and it's bringing through higher dimensional energy into this world. And I thought, what? I never had to ask myself, what's it mean to be drinking water that has energy from another dimension in it? But at that time, she did say um, that they tested it at 15 minutes, took 6 photographs, then at a half hour on the disc, another 6 photographs, and then at 50 minutes. She said, Michael, I don't think it's done doing its thing at 50 minutes. She said, I would suggest putting a glass of water on your disc at night and letting it sit overnight. By the way, if anyone is interested in getting one of these miracle water energizers, go to michaelleehill.net. And they're available. And I've tried to keep the price down and make that very available, because we got to get into too, who is instrumental in this technology was Chief Golden Light Eagle. He told me how to do an ancient water blessing ceremony at one of the first Springs that was the true fountain of youth, he told me. It's not St. Augustine in Florida. And I did that work in 2018. He said, once you do this, it will entangle, like quantum entangle. Mind you, this is Enlil. He said, once you do this ceremony, I'm going to teach you how to do. The Anunnaki have the ability to quantum entangle objects, and that it will entangle this other dimensional energy to your image, and anything that contains the image, whether it's a coaster or a t-shirt or a poster or sandals, anything will be bringing forth this other dimensional energy. Forward and backwards of time, he said that this ceremony is not tied to our timeline or our space-time continuum. He said if someone bought one of your discs in 2015, once I did the blessing ceremony in 2018, it would have already been transmitting the energy. That hurts my head. There's more to that story too, but it's a little bit too much to get into right now.
I think I got one of your discs in 2015, right? It's like
yeah, so it was
the first
already,
time I got one.
Yeah, it was already communicating. That hurts my head. But that's why too I've increased, I have pendants that have the image that you can wear it on you, and t-shirts. It's really, this image is not passive, it's active, and it's been proven by NASA. But here's the deal. Recently, Richard Hoagland found out that I've been working with the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull and become friends with Bill Hammond. Well, I didn't know Richard Hoagland. By the way, people that don't know who Richard is, he was NASA's science advisor for all the mass media throughout the Apollo missions. Like, he was Walter Cronkite's science advisor, and so on and so forth. And he's still to this day the museum curator for NASA. He brought me into the fold because he said, Michael, we know your story sounds batshit crazy to other people, but he said, NASA has been looking into how energy flows multidimensionally. He calls it hyperdimensionally for a very long time. And your 432 based math and physics numbers that you're bringing to the table are right on the money. So would you come on my show and talk about it? I'm like, well, hell yeah. Because he was a hero of mine, growing up. When I needed some answers, I was led to Richard Hoagland. So this was the big deal to me. During that show is when he said, I'd like to arrange NASA to look into your work. So when he found out I was working with the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull, he tells me, oh, by the way, man, I got to back up. Richard brought me into some team with NASA personnel to try to communicate with Oumuamua. Are you familiar?
Yes.
Well,
I'm familiar with the long object that was in space.
It was a comet that's not a comet.
Yeah. It already went by, right? It came out from behind the sun and then it went by.
Yes. So, but at this time, it was still in our solar system, but it was on its way out. And what people don't know is communication was being received at 432 megahertz.
Wow.
And they know it's from off-world. And so Richard Hoagland was like, holy shit, well, we got to get Michael as part of this team to try to construct a transmission to send out of a very high-powered radio. This is the movie Contact in real life, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so I was brought into the team, and sure enough, so this story actually went big time over ABC News. It was broadcast over 30 major cities all over the United States. And they twisted the story into an eccentric rock star tries to communicate with aliens, by using music and song. But they actually did a really nice job. And that, music is just frequency, and frequency is math and numbers, and it would be universal. If you want to communicate with extraterrestrials, it would be the way to do it. But
were you saying that 432 hertz is basically like the connection with that is interdimensional, like that kind of?
Yeah, well, here's what happened. To prove all of this is Richard asked me if I could bring Bill Hammond, the current guardian of the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull, onto his show because he acted as the science advisor on a Sci-Fi Channel documentary on the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull. So Richard Hoagland was absolutely fascinated and very knowledgeable about the skull. So I did that, but what I didn't know is Richard also reached out to Beverly Rubik to ask her if she would come on the show and speak about her, study into my crystal technology, because he felt it's both encoding of information into quartz crystal and they could be related. So Beverly couldn't come on the show, but she wrote him a very nice letter saying, I'm doing a study right now on 5G and I can't do anything else. My mind is wrapped around this, but I do remember working on Michael's discs. And I do remember that what I found was the longer the water kept on the disc, the energy grew exponentially, which is interesting. I think remember I said that she said, Michael, I don't think this thing is even done doing its thing at 50 minutes. Well, the energy grows exponentially. So I can see why she wanted to do a 24-hour study, because that leads to a lot of questions. Is there a threshold? How high can that energy reach? That something is in its field. Now, mind you, NASA has proven that when that image is encased in quartz crystal, that it's not passive, it's active. And that throws out a communication, a field that will resurrect dead water back into living water. And it's going to the moon, and it's going to be there for the next 10 billion years, at least, unless something destroys the moon, shining down on planet Earth. We are about to enter a time of living water, because if even one droplet of water in our atmosphere is transformed back into wholly living water, Dr. Emoto, I'm sure your audience is familiar with Dr. Emoto, so I'm just going to
the love water experiment, love hate water.
Yes. Water is memory. And so to speak, if you take one glass of water and put it on my 432 disc and restructure it, if you took one drop of that water and put it into another container that had never been introduced to the 432 frequency, it would restructure that water as well. So, and if the energy is growing exponentially, it's going to be there for 10 billion years. So I don't know. It's all fascinating to me. But here's the deal. This NASA consulting world-renowned biophysicist said, apparently, Michael has invented a cosmic energy collector, or a QI collector. So I was like, what the hell is a cosmic energy collector or a QI collector? I never heard those terms. And so I went down that rabbit hole, and here, cosmic energy is Nikolai Tesla's own words for his unlimited free energy, 369 energy, that said would free mankind from all sources of energy that we use right now that are polluting in, fossil fuels, and it would free us from oil and gasoline and diesel and nuclear, everything else, that this energy can provide unlimited free energy for mankind. This blew my mind because I had no clue. I really do feel like the Forrest Gump of all this. I'm just following my guidance from the Anunnaki. Like, all this information of how to do this and the importance of 432 came through a course of study into. Remember, I told you I was taken into the NSA insiders group of reverse engineering. It was known as the ACIO. And interestingly enough, back in 2008, the leader of that program is named A.R. Borden. And in the Wingmakers material, he was known as 15. And 15 was the head of Majestic 12. I'm sure you're familiar with that terminology. And he was the 15th person to hold that position. It's just that simple. And when he passed away, by the way, I did ask one of his peers, I said, so who's number 16 now? He said that part of the story hasn't been written yet. But this is interesting because he said, A.R. Borden told me, Michael, you're being brought into the fold because we know you're in contact with the Anunnaki. And by the way, I was contacted by Bigelow Aerospace, who owns owned Skinwalker Ranch, they said the same thing. We know that you're in contact with the Anunnaki, and because we've been studying it over the Skinwalker Ranch. And I got to share this just while we're on it. They said that what we see in the sky, that the true McCoy are these orbs of light. And it said that in some process unknown to mankind, they can come down and turn into biological life form. That's why they're called skinwalkers, which is a Native American First Nation term, because these orbs of light would come down and take on the form of a giant wolf or a giant deer or a giant whatever. But
I had a orb of light come to me one time that was like seriously like the most profound experience, and it didn't turn into anything, but it was just this like lime green ball of light, and it came down from the sky and just hovered like 20 feet away from me, and it just
wow,
hung there for a little bit, and then it shot forward and disappeared. And
how big was it?
it was like about the size of like a basketball or a beach ball, and I was in Joshua Tree. It was like early evening, like it wasn't really like it was starting to get dark, but it wasn't dark yet, and it just came down. And like at first I thought it was a meteor, and I was like with these people, but I was facing it and they were facing me, so like their backs were to it, and it came down, and I was about to be like, hey, look, a meteor. And then when it came closer, I'm like, wait, what? It was like this like big ball of like light that was like this glowing like neon green light, and then it just stopped like when it got eye level with me, and it was almost like it knew that I was there, and it knew that I saw it, and it wanted me to know that I knew that it saw it.
Absolutely.
And then it just shot forward and disappeared, and
Well, I
I
have
realized like I
information
have
for you.
this.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
what was that? Well, I realized I have this connection with this lime green light because it's come to me in different forms before with that same color, but that's the first time it was like just
Right on. Well,
a
it doesn't
physical
surprise
ball of
me
light.
because of who you are. And it knows who you are, and it's making communication. What I learned from the guy from Bigelow Aerospace turned me on to some information from the UK Ministry of Defense. And they said the real deal are these orbs of light. And then in some process unknown to mankind, three of them can come together and create one giant triangular craft that then thousands of them could use to come. But in both instances, and I know this sounds weird, but I've met the Arcturian ambassador on the planet as well, and he told me the same thing, that, well, getting back to Bigelow and the UK Ministry of Defense, they said the real deal are these orbs of light. They look at them as more of a extraterrestrial probe or drone, but the intelligence behind the orb might not be from our timeline. It might be from our past or our future, which is interesting. That's exactly what Bigelow told me. They said these aren't UFOs in the way that people think of craft made in a factory somewhere that's made out of metal and nuts and bolts. It's like he said they have more to do with portals and time travel. And what the Arcturian ambassador said is these orbs of light are truly uh, Merkaba fields and made by ascended masters. And, you know, it's spiritual lightcraft technology is what we're seeing at work. And so there's no doubt that it's not coincidence that they're appearing for you because,
What colors have you seen?
mostly they're all colors. They are multiple colors, and I've filmed them. It's what my footage is of. And you can go frame by frame. In one frame, it's all gold. The next frame, it'll be red. The next frame, it's blue. The next frame, it's green. I mean, they're flickering. Well, film is what, 1/27th of a second? 27 times per second, I believe, is film rate. So they're pulsating different colors very quickly, but I've seen them also take on just a green light or just a red light. And I heard that's absolutely the color that you perceive is dependent on its vibratory rate of spin. And I've had one manifest over my head as well. And this one was about the size of a hot air balloon. And it showed up down at Lake Erie about 20 feet above my head. That one was scary because I thought I was dead. Because I could see flame licking off of it. It was truly, you know, chariot of fire, biblically, or, you know, a burning bush. I guess you're going to describe it in however you need to
Was
describe
it
it. But
like light with like it was almost like the flame was like coming spinning off the light?
oh yeah, it looked like a
The
sun. It looked. I actually, when it happened, I really thought I was going to die because I could see flame, and it was only 20 feet away. I'm like, oh, this is how I die. I'm going to burn to death. And then instantly, realized there was no heat and there was no sound either. And that's weird too, because I know you know Steve Vai, and he called it the elusive light and sound, which we can get into that too. What is star knowledge? It's the knowledge of light and sound and how it creates physical reality. But
he's a Arturian, right?
he's something.
What I've heard.
Yeah, he's well, I got to meet him. You know, he actually gave me one of his guitars. Well, I won his contest. As you know, I do know that story of I had a lucid vision, and in the dream, right before that contest, I met him, and he was playing a song called "There's a Train That's Leaving" in this lucid vision, and he was levitating off the floor, and he levitated over to where I was with a guide, and the music stopped. It's like, welcome aboard. And when he said welcome aboard, it was like this cosmic um, God voice in a movie, you know? And it woke me up out of the dream. I was like, what the hell was that about, you know? And the next day, I had this weirdest feeling that there was a synchronicity waiting for me at Vi.com. I thought, would it be weird if he was working on a song called There's a Train That's Leaving or something? So I went there, and the first thing I seen was this banner that said, enter the Steve Vai Ibanez Guitar Challenge. And, you know, I knew I was going to win that contest. It had nothing to do with my guitar playing. And I hadn't recorded a note yet. It's like I just met him in a dream, and he said, welcome aboard, you know? So sure enough, I ended up winning the contest. And part of the contest was I won one of his own personal guitars and signed the back of the headstock for me, which I still own. Obviously, that's a prized possession. But it's interesting. I told him, I think I'm just going to put it under my bed because I'm not going to get another one, you know, and I don't want to. I'm pretty notorious for being difficult on instruments. And he's like, no, don't do that. It needs to be played. Play the shit out of it. So I have. I've actually taken it to a lot of musicians' nights and even let other people play it. And it's truly a Lamborghini of musical instruments, you know. But yeah, he's. I've really got to become friends with Steve, and he truly has knowledge that of dimensional time travel knowledge, you know, that is not typical. And he's not from here. But I told you I met the Arcturian ambassador, and man, weird story. Because he said, "This is weird, man. You're getting me to reveal some weird shit." But
I mean,
he's a
whatever you feel comfortable with, but we're
he's
here
a
for it.
he's a famous musician as well, and he was one of my major inspirations of even becoming a musician. And then he toured. He was offered to open up for the Rolling Stones, hand selected by Mick Jagger for 60 shows in 1991 for their Steel Wheels tour. And he said that at that point, he thought that when you had the kind of money that the Rolling Stones had and that kind of fame, all your problems went away. He said those dudes had more drama and bullshit in their lives than anything he'd ever seen. And he said they're all really super
Gross.
great dudes, but he said he like climbed to the top of this mountain thinking that there would be someone there to learn from, you know? And he said, no, not so much. But simultaneously, he got the gig from Spin Magazine to go interview the Dalai Lama. He said he met love then, you know, he met who lost everything. The Dalai Lama, his country was taken from him, his family slaughtered, his people slaughtered, and he still radiated nothing but love. So he took all the money he made. His last album sold 4 million copies, so he was really wealthy, and he dropped off the face of the planet and moved in with the Tibetan monks and lived with them for years. And he said every morning they would have to go to the river and practice their Tibetan throat singing. I'm sure you've heard that,
Wow.
right? And he said
Yeah.
they love to do it in the river because they could really project, and with the sound of the river, they could really get loud. He said one of the monks went to him one day and he said, "Dan, I heard a song on the Western radio, and will you show it to me?" And Dan's like, "What song?" And the monk looked at him and went, "Boom, boom, ch, boom, boom, ch, boom, boom." And he's like, "We Will Rock You." And the monk's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, that's it." So he said it was the most surreal time he had in Tibet, like with the monks teaching them how to sing "We Will Rock You."
That's amazing. Wow.
But so what happens is he comes out of his religious pilgrimage, and in 2009 he's touring for the first time. But mind you, all through 1990s, I'm thinking, what happened to my idol? Be all of a sudden, if like Sting just disappeared or Eddie Van Halen just disappeared, and I'm like, what the hell happened? So my friend seen that he was coming to Pittsburgh to do a solo acoustic act, that he was going to be playing his old Dan Reed Network songs. And so she got us tickets. It was my birthday. So we went. And after the show, first of all, man, I was just starstruck because this guy was such an inspiration to me. And after the concert, he just hung out with everybody, and I bought him a drink. And he's like, "Michael, do you know of it? Like, I have not got a place to sleep yet. Do you know of a good hotel close by?" I said, "Well, dude, we got 2 beds in our hotel room. Won't you just come and stay with us? We're within walking distance at the Holiday Inn right down the road." He's like, "Good, I got some good weed." So the next thing I know, my freaking idol is staying with us back at the hotel. But that's when I started to know there was something up, that he could do things that are not humanly possible. For instance, he'd be like, we had a bunch of garbage on the table in the hotel room that was wine bottles and wine glasses and crystals and garbage. He's like, "This is getting cluttered. Let me clear it up." And he took one bottle, and then he put a glass on it, and then put garbage and a glass and another bottle. And this stack of garbage of wine bottles, wine glasses, and crystals and garbage went from the table up between the ceiling fan blades, and he let go, and the thing balanced there.
Wow.
And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Obviously, I've become such friends with him. Now, the last 4 concerts he's done in Cleveland, I've played guitar for him, and he stayed at my house. And he could do it with anything. One time I had a fire going in the backyard, and he took my fire pit and he put a piece of wood and then a beer can, then a whole box of wood, and then another piece of wood. And then on top of this whole thing, he balanced one of those plastic, like, lawn chairs on top of it. So I asked him, I'm like, how do you do this? He said, "I can feel the gravity of, coming up from the center of the earth, and I can balance anything." He's one of those people. Have you ever seen people that can balance rocks in a river?
Yeah.
He does that as well. But getting
Wow.
back to him being the Arcturian ambassador, um, man, I'm going way off, and we have so much other stuff to talk about. But this gets into the blood anomaly and everything. At about 3 o'clock in the morning, we decided to if we can find a place to eat. And we did. It was about 4 blocks away. So here, him, my friend Claudia, and myself are walking through the streets of Pittsburgh. And out of nowhere, he said, "Michael, you have the bloodline." And I'm like, this is in 2009. I found out about the blood anomaly in 2008. So it's kind of fresh to me. I'm like, well, I know something about it, but I really don't understand it. He said, "It's royal blood." I said, "Well, I really don't understand that. He said, "I know, but you will." And luckily, my friend Claudia was there. She heard this whole conversation. At this point, we get to the restaurant that was open 24 hours a day. We sit down. I go, "Dan, how did you know about my blood anomaly? Did you see the History Channel show?" He said, "No." And at this point, I'm really confused. I'm like, well, how did you know about my blood anomaly? He said, Michael, it's not coincidence that you and I are speaking right now, that I am here to meet and greet the ancients as they awaken and to form the council of 150, and that you're number 63. And I said, wait a minute. And I said, who are you? I know what his name is. I'm not asking him on that level. You understand? And I said, who are you? And he said, I am of the highest of the Most High, who is here to meet and greet the ancients as they awaken and form the council of 150. He said, I don't know how many of the bloodline is actually incarnated. There could be thousands, but it's first come, first serve. And so through that, all I can tell you is I know who 64 and 65 is. I don't feel comfortable with saying who 65 is because she's famous and she's in Sweden, and she's a famous author over there. But 64 is Steve I, just so you know.
Wow.
So I guess he'll be next to me in the council. So I go, are you part of this? Are you one of these ancients? He goes, oh, no, I could never say that. That would be egotistical. I'm just here. I can spot them and, recognize. So I've learned more about the bloodline and stuff from him. And what I've shared with you so far is just a tip of the iceberg. Well, man, you should hear his music. I'll turn you on to, go
I
to
would love to.
Amazon Prime Music or Spotify and just type in Dan Reed. It's going to
Dan
kill me.
Reed.
I'm actually revealing his name. But people should know it's all through his music. And he actually has a song. He said, Michael, the last time we were together was in Egypt. And when the pharaohs, they wanted the keys to the multidimensional travel, and only us magicians had it. And you can't give it away, man. You got to become rainbow. You got to, and if you have those kind of thought forms of fear and control and abuse of power, you're not rainbow, and you can't tap into these. Because what I was told is no one that isn't rainbow is ever given by spirit any extra manifestation ability. They said, can you imagine if you had 6 of your 7 chakras glowing, they're clean and balanced, but your one chakra, let's just say it's your root chakra, is still dark and you've not healed it. So all of a sudden, if you got all this extra manifestation ability, you're probably going to go and manifest the crap out of what you still got a fear on. And, it wouldn't end well. And they told me spirit is smarter than that. Chief's brother, Chief Blue Star Eagle, was part of my naming ceremony. He said, once you've been deemed rainbow by the Eagle Nation, you're gifted your spiritual name, which yours is Rainbow Warrior, and that's what you're known by spirit. Spirit wouldn't know you as Mike, and he said that when you pray under your spiritual name, Rainbow Warrior, your thoughts will now go to Creator with great enthusiasm, he said. And so that's the story of meeting the spiritual ambassador, the Arcturian ambassador. I'm wondering, what is the Arcturian ambassador doing, putting together a council of Anunnaki hybrids? That seems weird to me, doesn't it to you? Like, I didn't know the two had anything to do with
Do
one
they
another.
have
But
different races? Were they trying to find different races for the council, or was it only?
I don't know. I asked him, I said, what's going to happen when you get to 150? And he said, we're going to have a meeting. Well, thanks. I was wanting more than that. You know what I mean? But I can tell you, I guess we're up to about 80. And the most recent entry I can tell you is Rudy Sarzo, from Ozzy Osbourne's band with Randy Rhoads. He was part of that original Ozzy Osbourne solo band, Crazy Train, I Don't Know, Mr. Crowley, Flying High Again, so on and so forth. That's Rudy Sarzo on bass. And
Wow.
it just so happened that Rudy was doing an interview with Jimmy Church. And he's like, I've been fascinated and obsessed with this 432 subject. And Jimmy Church is like, oh, you got to talk to my buddy Michael Lee Hill. So the next thing I know, Rudy Sarzo's contacted me for me to mentor him into all things 432. I'm pinching myself, going, "What the hell's
That's
going
awesome.
on?" This is because, man, as you know, being a guitar player, Randy Rhoads and that early Ozzy stuff, man, it just was such an inspiration to me. So Rudy Sarzo, his bass playing and everything, you know, uh, was instrumental to me.
Yeah.
No pun intended. Um, but so Rudy and I did a few Zoom sessions, and he's like, "Michael, have you written anything?" Because he was also part of Whitesnake with Steve Vai. He was part of that band lineup, which that's one
Oh.
of my favorite albums by Whitesnake. I don't know if you knew that, but it's the fact. So he found out, I won the Vi contest, so he was really interested in that. And he said, "Have you written any songs that are tuned to 432?" And I said, "Matter of fact, I have." I said, Do you know who Dan Reed is?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I know who Dan Reed is." And I said, "Well, me and him during COVID, he heard a song I wrote and he loved it and asked me if he could write lyrics and sing to it." I'm like, yeah, talking, it's weirder to me meeting some of my heroes like Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, Dan Reed than it was meeting extraterrestrials. That seems more far, far flung to me. But so I said, me and Dan worked on a song during COVID shutdown, and it's called Morning Star. It was pretty much done. He goes, "Oh, what are you doing with it?" I said, "Nothing. It was just something we decided to do." And he said, "Can I hear it?" So I sent him a copy of it, and he's like, "Well, if you're not doing anything with it and you're not signed to any contract, would you mind if I redo the bass track?" I'm like, "No, please." So sure enough, that's in the can, it's done. And Rudy played bass on it. But Dan was excited, and that's how I know. He said, "Very good job at bringing another member of the Council of 150 to the table, that we're up to 80 now." And I don't know if Rudy even knows this. Um,
That's
but
incredible.
but yeah, I don't know if you've heard the most recent version of Morning Star, but that has Dan Reed and Rudy Sarzo and myself. It's kind of like a super group with one super unknown guy, and that's me.
And that's on Spotify. I can just find
It
that
is on
on Spotify.
Spotify. I made a video for it that's on YouTube. And all you'd have to do is type in Morning Star, um, Dan Reed, Rudy Sarzo. Because, but just so you know, this is in the works now. They both really like the song, and they both want to work on more music with me. My songs will be the catalyst that the song grows from. Dan said, "I really like painting with your crayons, Michael." And so they're both in holding pattern for me to bring some more songs, which I have some of the best stuff I've ever written. And beyond that, I I've tapped the code. A.R. Borden of the NSA reverse engineering, he said, "Michael, you have music in you, but not just in the fact of writing cool songs." He said, "To create physical matter, you need specific frequencies, and not just specific frequencies. You need specific frequencies in specific combination, which would be a melody or a chord, right?"
Yeah.
And so I've cracked that code because I found out from NASA, they said the only time we've ever seen any increase of cosmic energy through any frequency is when it resolves to 9, meaning 4 plus 3 plus 2 equals 9. Its lower octave is 216 hertz. 2 plus 1 plus 6 is 9. Its lower octave is 108. 108 is 9. And that's interesting because Tibetan monks have 108 prayer beads on their bracelets, and uh, they will chant 108 times, recite, chants 108 times. Then lower than that is 54 hertz, and then 27 hertz. But what I did then is, I know they had told me I needed to start tuning my instrument to A equals 432 instead of 440. So I did the math and I looked at, because there's a lot more notes, as you know, than A on a guitar neck. So I worked out the actual math and science of every note on every fret and every octave and wrote down the actual frequency that it would be. And that's when it hit me. Wow, every note resolves to 9 when you're tuned properly. So if you're tuned to A equals 432, no matter where you play on the neck, no matter what note you hit, it is going to bring forth extra cosmic energy that can heal, that can, if our
Yeah.
music
I
was
used to
tuned,
perform that with the band I was in that
well,
unfortunately ended via
hallelujah, because
COVID, but
you would actually
since you were around
provide a
doing that.
healing ceremony to your audience, that you're anyone within that field, it's going to bring life force into their body to promote healing. That's another thing I found out is QI collector that the NASA scientists said apparently I've invented. QI has another spelling. It's CHI. It's chi. It's prana. It's life
Mm.
force. It's Holy Spirit. Many names for it. But so imagine a device that's bringing through extra chi or prana that can heal. So they're very powerful healing devices. But at first, man, I would tell people these are really powerful energy healing devices, or it's a nice paperweight. Do whatever with it you want to do with it. But
I I honestly I really like doing so I do this open eye meditation technique
mhm,
and I do it with the big disc sometimes and it's
mhm.
yeah, it's
It's
really
awesome,
incredible
man. It'll
experience.
bring you in. That image in itself is so multidimensional, and the more you zoom in, the more detail. And by the way, I should send you the actual image I got from the scientists of that image is a 4K resolution image. So I can do prints of that would be the size of a wall that wouldn't be even pixelated. So I can
Wow.
really zoom in on what's going on in close up of that image, and it's pretty profound. So if you'd like to see that, I can share it with you.
Yeah, that would be very interesting. I'd like to see that.
But where were we with all this? I went way
Um
off the railroad tracks.
well, I feel maybe we should kind of wrap this up with the Serpent Mound, what you have to say about Serpent Mound and I know you had some photos of some UFO activity over Serpent Mound.
Yeah, that was one of the closest UFO experiences I've ever had. It was a few years back, and if you have the photos, you could share it. It was way off in the distance, man, as far as I could see over this field, and it looked like, I don't know, about 20 times the size of the biggest planet you've ever seen in the night sky, like Venus. But I'm like, there's about, I don't know, 6 or 7 of us that were there. And at that time, I was a late bloomer to having a cell phone. I didn't even have a cell phone. But some of the other people got their phone out, and that's what you're seeing. I'm like, the thing's coming this way, man. So it took, I don't know, about 10 to 15 minutes for it to reach that far in the horizon. And it flew right over us. And that, what you're seeing there, it was about the size of a jet, but it was just one massive ball of light. But you could see there's 2 orbs on each side of that ball of light. And it flew right over our heads. And that night, we were camping right next to Serpent Mound. And so the next morning, we went out to the mound itself, and all of a sudden, a Black Hawk helicopter, yep, showed up, and we got that down because obviously we're like, what the hell is going on? So that Black Hawk came in and circled over the mound about 3 times, just a few hours after that UFO flew over. But man, that's
Wow.
just the tip of the iceberg to some of the weird experiences I've had at Serpent Mound. What I could tell you is,
What
go ahead.
Yeah, what other experiences have you had there? And I was wondering what you feel like any sort of background you may know about Serpent Mound. That you mentioned earlier that there were giants buried near them, but I mean maybe what it used to be used
Not even
for, or how
near.
old they are.
I don't know exactly, but I know they're way older than they're being, given credit for. One thing I can tell you is Chief Golden Light Eagle told me that the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull is over 400,000 years old. So
Wow.
things are a lot older than we think. It's how old is the Serpent Mound? I don't know, But I can tell you that walking in for a water blessing ceremony one time with Chief Golden Light Eagle, he always had an entourage that would form around him. And there was about, I don't know, 25 people walking through the mound ceremony, and I was right next to his side. And he announces to the crowd, Michael here is the one that's going to reveal to the world the frequency of Serpent Mound. I'm like, I am? Like, what the hell is that about? And so afterwards, I was like, Chief, what are you talking about? He said, well, you know where the vortex is on the mound? And I said, yes, it's in the mouth of the serpent, by the way. And he said, a frequency is emitted out of the mouth, and it's strongest on equinoxes and solstices. And our government actually knows it, and they can actually monitor it from space from a satellite, and they do. At certain times of the year, it's on,
Wow.
and certain times of the year, it's off. And he said that I was going to be the one that would reveal to the world the frequency of Serpent Mound. And he said every coil of the serpent has another frequency. And which,
And
as you know, every coil, well, they mark out equinoxes and solstices and moon phases, but there's also apparently a frequency attached. So I asked him, well, how can I how can I verify what the frequency is? He said, you need a certain crystal, and he said, with that crystal, you'll be able to when you tune in to the sound of the crystal, you'll know the frequency. I said, what kind of crystal are you talking about? Is it like a quartz crystal? Or he said, Michael, you are the crystal. Oh, I have no idea what that even means. But later on, I went for years of thinking, you know what sympathetic resonance is, right?
sympathetic resonance. I'm not sure.
In a nutshell, that means if you had two acoustic guitars in a room and they're both
Oh,
tuned
right. And they like when you play, then sometimes you can hear like the other one. It will across
yes,
the room. It will like make a noise and
exactly.
start vibrating.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
you have two
that's
strings,
crazy stuff.
the A strings are tuned to A432, and you hit one string, the other string will begin to vibrate. That's never been touched. So I'm thinking, do I need to bring an acoustic guitar there and stand over the vortex in the mouth of the serpent and see if I can get that string to start vibrating? That would be
Oh, that
one
sounds like
way.
fun. Have you
Yeah,
done that
doesn't
yet?
it? No, because what
Do
happened was
it this weekend.
that would be cool. Well,
You
you need to
should
record it,
definitely do
which I
that.
do. I have a recording studio that's battery powered. It's a little 8-track digital studio, and I got a brand new Taylor, really nice acoustic guitar, and I could do it, but I think it's going to be too cold this trip around. But let me tell you what happened, because I really didn't know what he was talking about. So right before he died, I went to the big woman upstairs. I call her. Some people would say God, all that is, and I said, what what
I love
what
that.
frequency is Chief? He said I would reveal the frequency of Serpent Mound. I don't know what it is. And she said, oh, yes, you do. And I said, what? She said, of course, it's 432. And I said, well, duh. I just don't want to make assumptions. You know what I mean? Like I am very scientifically minded, and I want proof and confirmation, which I still am on that. But I went back to Chief then. I said, Chief, uh, I asked Spirit, what the frequency of Serpent Mound was that you said I would reveal to the planet. And it told me I already knew it's 432. You said, yes, Michael, now go spread that knowledge with a smile. So it's already confirmed that is the frequency. Well, I'm finding out it's the frequency of everything, man. People have no clue that we are living in a 432 based reality. And it's not woo woo, new age talk. For instance, like we said, to get to any actual scientific octave of 432, you either divide by 2 or you multiply by 2. So take 432 times 2 is 864, right? And if you, the lower octave is 216. And when you look at miles, how many miles across is the sun? It's 8,640 miles across. The moon is 2,160 miles across. That's 216 and 864. And that's why we get a full totality eclipse where one fits perfectly inside of the other when they line up, because they are perfect octaves of one another. This universe that we're living in is the 432 based creation. And because E equals MC squared, right? Everyone knows, but we know quantum physics now tells us everything is both particle and wave. And that's only the particle part of the equation. It's right there. M equals mass, equals energy, M equals mass, C is the speed of light squared. So where is the frequency component? Well, it turns out 432 squared is C. 432 times 432 is the speed of light. Within 1% accuracy, I would be willing to venture that is the actual accurate in a vacuum speed of light. So saying that backwards is 432 base frequencies are truly the only frequencies that are harmonics of light. And light creates everything from atoms to galaxies to stars to planets, and even our precessional cycle, which is the wobble of our planet Earth, which takes 25,920 miles long. That is the longest time period that we measure time. And the Anunnaki called it the Great Year. That's 25,920. Now look at our smallest division of time is 60, you know, and they gave us above that is 12. So they gave us this idea of multiplying and dividing whole units by 12, whether it's 12 inches in a foot, 12 hours in a day. Interestingly enough, look at how many seconds is in 12 hours. It's 43,200, 432. Our whole system of timekeeping, all measurement, because I asked Richard then, I'm like, who the hell invented the system of timekeeping that is inches to feet to yard to a mile? Because whoever did it knows what they're doing, because it lines us up with cosmic harmonious frequencies accurately. And he said it came through Europe first, and it's called the imperial system of measurement. And some parts of the world have taken us out of that. The United States is actually the only one that still uses it. And that's interestingly enough. But here's the deal.
And everyone else makes fun of us for using it still.
Yeah, they have no clue that, well, good luck with that. There's nothing encoded in the metric system that is of any value to star knowledge whatsoever. Because, you know, our whole system, and then that gets into how, okay, the precessional cycle, let's get back to that. The biggest timekeeping slice that we use is one complete cycle through the precessional cycle. That's the age of a Pisces into the age of Aquarius and whatnot. 25,920 divided by 60, our largest and smallest division of time. Guess what the answer is? It's 432.
432.
I'll save you the agony. But also, I want to say, you know, the communication that NASA has been getting through our work to try to communicate with them is now verified. A very interesting scientific equation, and that is 432 times the golden ratio squared divided by 360 equals the mathematical constant of pi. It ties everything together, whether it's 432 or the golden mean, the Fibonacci sequence, and the mathematical constant of pi are all very interrelated. And when you start a Fibonacci sequence, we all know to start with 0 and then 1 and then 1 and 2, then 3. Every number is derived from the 2 before it, right? So 1, 1, 2, 2 and 1 is 3, 3 and 2 is 5, 5 and 3 is 8, so on and so forth. That creates the Fibonacci sequence that we know of. But look what happens when you create a Fibonacci sequence starting with 3 instead of 1. The first 3 are 3, 6, 9. Isn't that interesting? But when you get to, I think it's about the 15th place of that Fibonacci sequence, it lands on 432. So 432 implies the only Fibonacci sequence that begins with 3, 6, 9. And as I said, luckily, NASA, I have confirmation that the technology I've brought to the planet is bringing forth this Nikola Tesla 369 technology, but they're really freaked out, by the way, because the way Nikola Tesla produced this unlimited free energy that he called cosmic energy was through the use of what he called Tesla coils and the Tesla tower. They said for the first time ever, they're seeing cosmic energy. And Hoagland said that a collector isn't the right term. It's a transmitter and a receiver. So it's a transceiver. It's a cosmic energy transceiver. And so that's weird, man. I would have never thought that I'd be finishing up Nikolai Tesla's work on this planet, but it is what it is. Like I said, I feel like the Forrest Gump of all this, and I'm just, to me, well, you would know better than anyone. When you retune your instrument to 432, there's actually more resonance. There's more vibration. So when you play an acoustic guitar, you can feel it in your gizzard in a way, a whole new way. You can feel music in a whole new way, and there's no turning back. It's a grassroots movement. I'm sure you felt it.
Yeah, I mean the band I was in, we used to tour around and actually give presentations before performing on it at some events, with Sandfest and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I think didn't they say like Pink Floyd and I think a couple other bands, they were kind of secretly doing it all along, putting everything in 432 hertz.
Uh, yes, but I'm not so sure of that because even Rudy Sarzo told me, he formed Quiet Riot. He said back then they didn't have digital tuners or anything, so they would just tune by ear, and they would all tune up together. And now they were in 432. It wasn't even, they just did it by intuition. And even like Tibetan monks, when you get a Tibetan singing bowl, they're tuned
That's
perfectly to
432.
432. And they don't use a tuning reference. They do it by just feel and their own intuition. But in the same way, I've heard that Hendrix at Woodstock was tuned to 432, but they said it was actually
Really?
because of the humidity. You know, you know,
Oh, it tuned the guitar.
it affected
Wow.
his tuning standard that he was in. I can tell you, the only person I know that actually is tuned properly is myself, but and you, but also Prince. Prince,
Really? I actually
yeah,
live
he.
in his old house. That's where I'm at right now in,
Oh my
in the
goodness,
hills.
I'm
Yeah, it
such
was like
a
one of his old
Prince.
like band houses before, like kind of earlier in his career. He used to live here, I guess, when he was in
How
town.
cool! I am
It's a weird
absolutely
place.
starstruck with you now. I am anyhow, by the way, because I am such a Star Trek fan, and especially the new Picard. I was so bummed when, because of COVID, because first of all, I want to know the story of you being the only one that was not a twin. There is a
I
massive story
I
there that,
don't know. It was weird because like literally every like I didn't even know what was going on. I just showed up on set and like it was like like 5 in the morning was when I had to be there, but I was probably there like, at 4 or something, and everyone was twins, and I'm like, "What's going on with am I supposed to have a twin?" I'm like, "You're all well, some of them were like they never met before, but they looked exactly alike." So they were like they just met and they're like, "Wow, we look exactly alike." And for
you know
some
what,
reason, I wasn't a
Apolla,
twin and
you need to contact them again because in the new season of Picard, they're bringing back Lore, who is Data's android synthetic
I
being
I
twin.
was supposed to come
So,
back for season 2, and they had 2 months blocked out for me, but because I didn't get the shot, they wouldn't let me film.
uh, I uh, I'm
So
bummed for you, and I'm bummed for the world because I know that there is a really cool story that is waiting there for us Trekkies, and so I'm totally just blown away by you. And you're the only musician I know that's tuned properly, and you being part of the Star Trek family, I'm like, yeah. So just so you know,
well, thank you. Well, fans of fans, because obviously I'm a fan of you too, and it's really amazing having you come on here and hear your story. And I look forward to seeing you at the Serpent Mound event this weekend.
Me too. Some of the people that are going to be there, I'm just, by the way, this is the first time ever that I'm not going to have a vending table. And believe me, I do really well at these shows and I'm throwing money out the window, but I do not want to be
Yeah.
locked down to my table.
That's
And I
the
want to
same
be
thing
able,
here. I was
yeah,
gonna
you
bring
know
my spears,
exactly
but I'm
what I'm
like, I don't
talking
want to be
about.
stuck.
No, because I want to, there's grandmother Silver Star. You definitely need to tune in for her. And the people that are in my
I
chalet
had
are from,
a I had a really crazy experience with Grandmother Silver Star at the Star Knowledge Conference back in
oh,
November. So I had this one spear I had just made, and it had like these like blue and like light blue and dark blue and like white like kind of coloring on it. And for some reason it just kept telling me it was meant for someone there, and I wasn't sure who. And so I brought it with me, and in the middle of the week I had this experience where I went out in the middle of a field with some people, and Chief Golden Light Eagle's daughter and some people, and um I just saw like the constellation of Pleiades like was like right above me, and I went like way out like past everyone else, and like I was like in this like tall grass just like laying there. It's like freezing cold, but something told me just like lay right there and look up above. And right when I looked up, it was like after I laid down, it was like the Pleiades was like directly above me, and it was just like
ah,
really bright. And I was like, I holding that spear. I think I had that one with me, and then on the last day of the event, I hadn't really talked to her the whole event. Like I was kind of meant to, but she was always like surrounded by people. And the last day of the event, I went up to her and I was like, hey, like something's telling me I need to give this to you. I don't know what it is, but something told me this is for you. And I gave her the spirit, and she was like, yeah, this is a gift to me from the Pleiades through you. And then she mentioned that she heard that I was saying that I was Cherokee in my presentation, and she said that that the Cherokee are descended from the Pleiades or
yes,
Pleiadians.
indeed. Yeah, it's the Anunnaki. People don't know half of the Anunnaki family tree is half Pleiadian through the Inky side. That long ago, the king of the Anunnaki, his name was Anu, and Anu had a Pleiadian queen as his partner, and their first offspring was myself. So the first Anunnaki Syrian Pleiadian hybrid came through my bloodline of the Anunnaki. But a lot of people throw the Anunnaki under the proverbial bus, saying that they're the ones that are to blame behind the secret societies and whatnot. But then in the same sentence, they're like, oh, the Pleiadians are great. They're all love and light. I'm like, you have no idea what you're even talking about. But it's okay. You know, um, But yeah, Pleiadian is. But I got to tell you, Grandmother Silver Star is one of the major contributors of bringing through star knowledge. That in our culture, it's the grandmothers who own the highest level of authority, and uh, I don't even know what to call it. But it was Grandmother Silver Star who brought a lot of this information through to Chief Golden Light Eagle and the symbols and whatnot. So I'm very close with a lot of the grandmothers, by the way, now. And I just found out some interesting things, and I can't share a lot of it, but the grandmothers are working behind the scenes to bring in the golden age and take out the dark cabal. And they said that
Wow.
we have actually anchored in the fifth dimensional grid of sacred geometry, grid work for a brand new reality, and it will be firmly here by 2030. And right now is the time of traveling from reality A to B, and the dark are running scared right now. All their bullshit and all their treachery and their dark ways no longer work, and they have nowhere to turn, and all of it's being revealed to the public. And I see that every day. And I tell people, again, the
Mm.
apocalypse It means the revealing of what was once hidden. And I tell people I'm proud to be a bringer of the apocalypse. It's star knowledge on this planet that will bring forth technology that can make this planet green again through my 432 technology and just the wisdom that is here. Imagine in California if you had no more forest fires. Well, that's what
That would
the
be
Native
great.
American first culture has to offer, that when they were caretakers of the land, there was no forest fires because they knew how to do control burn. So a lot of people, a lot of places in California right now are bringing back the chiefs and the elders to learn how to do control burns um, accurately and effectively. And not only that, the agriculture that is kept within this culture, to they call it the, this is just one example, but it's called the Three Sisters. And that's when you plant corn, beans, and squash together. Like one plant will take nitrogen out of the soil, the other plant replaces it, the other plant goes up the stalk and keeps bugs off of it, and everything grows much larger and a nicer, bigger yield. And it's almost like non-GMO, spiritual GMO. But wait till the world sees what happens when you use 432 water for agriculture, for your gardening and whatnot, because NASA said they've tested every form of water re-energizing and restructuring technology on the planet. And they've never seen in any water studies any technology that is re-energizing water the way that my crystal discs will. So
Wow,
that's
that is
exciting.
really incredible. Yeah, and let me go ahead and share this again for the audience. And yeah, I need to probably close out of here pretty soon. So I don't know if you want to say anything in closing.
No, just keep the faith. Uh, I think I'm not so sure how bumpy of a ride it's going to get from reality A to reality B. But no, from all higher sources, we've already locked in, we've anchored in a brand new reality where mankind will be freed from the evil banking, slavery economic system that we've been under for a very long time. That part of the work I've done here was to be brought before the Council of Seven, or Nine, or 12. It's the exact same council. It just depends on how you count it. And the dark have been removed from the equation of future happenings. I went through the same testing that King Solomon went through. And this is at the Sundance. You and I talked about it. Luckily, I made the right decisions, and that's why I was given the name Rainbow Warrior Eagle. And weirdly enough, when I got the name at a Star Knowledge conference by the elders, they said I was being recognized as the recent incarnation of Archangel Michael, which is really weird to me. That's not my bag, and it's not my bigger story at all. But they gave me back his actual 3D representation of his sword of truth. He said that I got the real thing back in the astral a few weeks prior, but as above, so below, that I needed a 3D equivalent to the sword of truth, and it was returned to me. They said it had been in their keep for a very long time, and that, would you like to see it real quick?
Yes, I would.
And it's hard for me to get back there. Yeah, so much clutter. I miss being in Florida, let me tell you. It's not it. So I know it sounds batshit crazy for people to hear that I've been recognized as the current incarnation of Archangel Michael, which they said that was Inky's real name, by the way. It was, Inky is not a name, it's a title, and so is Ia. My name was always Mikiel. But they said that it was made in the same way that the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull was, and they said, which was sound. Check this out. I mean, I'm not making this up. I didn't pull this out of my ass. You know what I mean? And I don't know if you can see, but that
Yeah, what are
shaft,
those symbols?
it has the serpent mound. See the serpent, and then at the end is the egg. Isn't that something?
Wow.
And then as you go up, it's the floral delete, which is the symbol of our bloodline, the Anunnaki human hybrid bloodline. Now you see the crescent eclipse moon symbols going up the shaft.
Wow, that's amazing.
That is Inky's symbol back in Sumer. Anytime you see an Inky being like sitting in a throne or whatever, above him is that symbol. And then, and this thing is unbelievable crystal, quartz crystal. Matter of fact, I had it in our home in Florida. And one day when we walked in the door at the end of that hallway, it was sitting there and it was freaking glowing. Let me tell you.